Off a day and welcome to Data Points. My name is Ryan and I'm the president of Pinpoint Guam. And today we have Jen Camacho coming on. And I asked Jen to come on for a lot of reasons, primarily because she runs like 4 businesses and she grew up in those businesses and she grew up in various stages of economic distress and success. And I thought her perspective would be valuable because we always talk about real estate here, but now we're delving into other industries because now I think it's time. We've gone from housing to policies and politics, and now we're going to just like downstream effect and other areas of concern because that's just the way the conversation is moving organically. And we appreciate all your listens, likes, shares for all our content. We appreciate you. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. We're open to your questions. And if you want to see a guest, let us know. We're happy to work on that. And we appreciate all your follows. So thanks for joining us and look forward to this episode. Off a day and welcome to Data Points. My name is Ryan and I'm the president of Pinpoint Guam. And I'm here with Jen Camacho. She's the senior vice president of Cars Plus. They have Soft Wash, Thrifty Rent-A-Car, Go Solar, Triathlete, and I'm sure a bunch of other things that we'll get into, right? I apologize, I always botched the introduction a little bit. But a lot of the reason is because, especially when I'm friends with you, right? Yeah. I don't go straight to the accolades and the bio, but we are friends. And the connection with Jen and I is through a shout out to Rotary Club of Tumon Bay. That's where we met, and that's where we've developed a friendship and a professional rapport. So we've been talking about you coming on for a little bit, yes. Right? And so I'm glad we finally were able to make it happen. I'm really glad to have you here. And so I want to touch base with, or to connect with you and just ask if you can tell me the story of how you got to be where you are.
Sure. Thanks, Ryan. And it's really great to be here. I'm excited. I listen to just about all of your episodes, and I'm always mind blown with a lot of the information that you and your guests bring to the table. So I'm proud to be here and looking forward to this.
All right. So give it to me.
Yeah. So let's see. I'm going to be going into my 20th year next year, at Cars Plus. And really we started 27 years ago. My father, Joey Crisostomo, founded this with my mom, Joyce, and that was in 1999. So really it started back then. And back in the late 90s too, that's really where I got my feet wet. And I started to really grind it out with my dad as a young girl. I was in high school at the time. And, I just always loved going to the dealership with him, and here we are, fast forward, me returning to Guam after college in 2007, this is where, I knew this is what I wanted to do. And I knew at 15, this is what I wanted to do.
That's awesome. So what has that been like watching the business grow, from a teenager to now, 20 years in? And what have you seen in the evolution of the landscape and what are the things that excite you?
Yeah, what I love about the auto industry is that it's always changing. And if you look back in the late 90s, that was also a really stressful and difficult time, I think, for every business on Guam. When we had the Asian economic crisis, it really it has me adoring my father even more to take that risk back then, right? And to see that opportunity even during a huge economic crisis. And this industry, it changes so much. If you went back to the late 90s, there's some new dealers now or newer dealers, and brands shift around. More brands come to the island, some leave. And, that's just what I love is how does each of us dealers, how do we evolve? And how do we keep up with the times? And it's, it's really nice because I think something really unique on Guam is that the dealers, we all have a really good relationship with each other. I think we're fierce competitors. We're all very competitive, but at the end of the day, we can all pick up the phone and call each other. And we have Guam Auto Dealers Association, which is the 6 new car dealers on island. And boy, when something comes up, whether it's, legislation or really anything that's going to affect the business, we certainly rally together and we work together. to help protect the industry and each other.
Okay. So how does one become an auto dealer? Can you, like, what is the journey that gets you, from, okay, I need a brand, I need a car.
Yeah.
I would presume, you start out small, like in used cars.
Exactly.
Right? Okay. Tell me.
So that's really how it starts. We started out as a used car dealership, similar to a lot of the other locally owned dealerships.
Mm-hmm.
You start out as a used car dealer and you get your experience, but really, it's a mixture of relationship building and a little bit of luck.
Mm-hmm.
You'll hear that a lot from entrepreneurs, that you got to have both. You got to build the relationships, you got to have the performance, the experience. There's that splash of luck too, right? And, with us, my father had built a strong relationship with Hyundai and Chrysler back in the day. And so really we started out as used cars. And, what a lot of people don't realize is back in 1999, my dad, what he got, Hyundai wanted to just kind of give him test him, right? Test the business. And so he really started out as a 6-month agreement.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. Wow. And so that 6 month has turned into 27 years.
Good job.
We're proud Hyundai distributors. And, same with Chrysler. Chrysler, actually, at the time, it was Daimler Chrysler. Mm-hmm. And it started out not even with sales. It started out by giving us a service agreement. So really, our role for Chrysler was to just sell or to service the Chrysler and Dodge models, the Jeep models that are on Guam. And that performance turned into a full-blown dealer agreement. And also, almost 27 years later, we're still the now Stellantis dealer. Stellantis, yeah. That's the parent company for Chrysler, Jeep, Ram trucks, and Dodge.
You were totally outside my industry knowledge.
That's why this is going to be fun.
There's all these, generally we're in real estate here, but we're kind of venturing into business leaders. And one of the reasons we're venturing into these discussions with business leaders is because a lot of the conversations are starting to circle around data and the availability of data, business planning, and then also transparency and accountability and performance-based budgeting and all these things that we hear a buzz in the ether, on Instagram, and on the paper, in the newspaper or news publication.
Yeah.
Paper doesn't exist anymore. But what do you think? What are some of the major obstacles that you've been dealing with, like structurally, post-COVID, that you see and you feel that need to be addressed now?
Sure. I think with COVID, the auto industry was one of the industries that fared really well throughout. And what caused that was there was less inventory. There was the chip shortage during the COVID pandemic. So you had the chip shortage, and that was negatively affecting the dealers. But then right after came the COVID pandemic. And so that caused a shortage in vehicles being able to be produced. So with economics, demand was up, supply was down. And so cars were they were priced better, and, the demand was up. So throughout the pandemic, dealers really, we had to see different industries, everybody went through a different experience through COVID. And with us, I think the more difficult one was the chip side of things, to get vehicles even produced. But, on the flip side, during that pandemic, you had all this money pouring into the island.
Sure.
And so consumers who needed a vehicle, or they've been putting it off, they were able to finally get a vehicle. And so, that actually was a positive effect for the dealership industry throughout that. But what did come out of that was a tough one, because as I think every industry on Guam felt, was the personnel issue that came with that too. We were struggling to get employees back, we're struggling to just hire new employees was difficult. And, I think we're seeing less and less of that now, 6 years later. But I think there are still some side effects that you can still see lingering around from COVID. But I think personnel, and especially in the trade side, so getting those certified, qualified mechanics, getting the jobs that require your hands and the labor. I know every dealer right now, we're always looking for mechanics. Like the Guam could use more auto mechanics and really more of the trades.
Yeah, I agree. And one of the things I notice is, and when you say that, right, the skilled technicians, I would think it would be hard to keep skilled technicians, especially because there's so many opportunities for movement, not just locally but externally,
Yes.
because it's a skill that translates, but also just sidelining and also the problems that come with that when they're in the gig economy where you have a workshop of equipment and things like that. But the business model has changed a lot too, because of the chipping and because of the way autos are manufactured. So what do you with those changes, do you see business practice aligned locally with the way the industry is moving forward?
I do. I think that we aligned. We're always just right behind the mainland, and I will say the mainland's experienced the same thing. But here locally, one thing we're up against is we all dealers and probably most industries, including heavy equipment. I'm sure we're all competing with, say, federal contractors who also need those skilled laborers, and we're already limited supply of personnel and humans on the island, and so that makes it even tougher. But I think we're pretty aligned with usually the way the mainland goes, and you'll see Guam and Hawaii start to trail right behind them.
That's it. So what are some of the obstacles that you face?
Gosh, well, I tell you, another thing that came out in the last 5 years, I'm sure you always hear about the EV market, electric vehicles. That is, here on Guam, it's still a tough industry. And we had manufacturers really pushing the EVs and wanting dealers and distributors to get more EVs out. But when you're a small island like Guam, charging infrastructure is difficult. Mm-hmm. And, the technology is, it's still, I don't want to say it's too advanced, but, a lot of people just love their petrol, or they love their fuel. They love gassing, right? We call ourselves petrol heads. And it's a technology that, most people that get an EV are going to be typically people or someone that already has solar panels, for example, on their home, because it doesn't make economic sense to get an EV if you don't have solar on your home.
I see that.
Yeah. And so with utility prices the way they are, it makes the EV market quite tough because the charging infrastructure is not there. But, more recently, a lot of the shippers have stopped bringing in or have stopped allowing shipment of EVs.
Why?
They've been, thankfully we haven't had any on the way to Guam, but there have been ships around the world and that have caught fire. Yeah, that you had companies or automakers with, I know John Selleck was just on and he mentioned Ro-Ro. Right. I love Ro-Ros, roll on, roll off. And, you can have a ship with all of these dozens of EVs. If one catches fire, they're all going to catch fire. And so there are ships at the bottom of the ocean, unfortunately, with just brand new EVs, because once one catches fire, they're all going to catch fire and the ship's going to go down. Wow. So a lot of the shippers, especially those coming from the U.S. and going back to the U.S., they won't have EVs unless they're pre-approved, and they must be brand new. So they'll have to get vetted from the manufacturer first.
I see.
And there's absolutely no shipping of a used EV. So what makes that tough is, let's say a military family buys an EV here, they're not going to be able to ship it to their next point, especially if they're getting stationed back in the U.S. So they're less likely to get an EV here because they can't ship it home. They can't ship it to their next place.
No, my John Selleck, like, stop shipping. Can you take the battery out? Can we manufacture the battery?
Yeah, it was such a great episode. I loved it. And, in the auto industry, we have to align so well with the shippers, with all the companies, Matson, APL, Kiowa. And so it's nice to see and hear John Selleck's interview, because I think it was enlightening for a lot of those that don't know too much about the shipping industry, because it's huge. It's everything, for especially here on Guam.
Well, yeah, and especially if those restrictions limit what you can or can't, and also limit how competitive you can be.
Yes.
Locally, because of the shipping obstacles and the mandates by your brands,
right,
that you represent.
Right. But they're also just, it's, especially with EVs, you look now at gas prices being over $6 a gallon, right?
Yeah.
And so all our EV owners, we're there, everyone's happy. Everyone is thrilled, right? And now we've got people coming in asking for hybrids,
Sure.
asking for EVs. But, that can quickly change. The moment gas prices go back and level out, then you're going to see that dip again. So it really is, consumers can be very reactionary, and we see that.
And over the course of our conversation, you've referenced a couple different opportunities, right? And you also referenced solar. Right? And you guys do go solar. And we talk about verticals a lot here.
Yes.
And being entrepreneurs, what is it? Do you think it's easy to start a business here?
I wouldn't say it's easy. I think if you have that entrepreneur spirit, you might consider it easy, but I think that's a stretch. I think you just got to want to do it. I mean, you're an entrepreneur yourself, and it can be easy if you know how to get it done, and you really want to do it. There are struggles, there are challenges, that's for sure. But I think you build good relationships, and man, if you really want to get it done, you can.
So what has that journey been like? Because you say you have EVs, right? Yes. And then you tangentially tie it to solar, right? But by the way, I have a solar business, right?
Yeah.
So what is that thought process like for you when you're looking to delve into other lines? Are you always looking like, what do you like? What do you see moving forward like here that you think has potential where people should be looking?
Sure. Well, I think we're always looking for opportunities, but a lot of times it's what is something that's solving our issue. Mm-hmm. And so, I'll try to go in chronological order here with the way we've kind of expanded into different industries. But, first it was Cars Plus, starting out as a used car dealership. And then that transformed into the new car dealership. And then in 2003, Kawasaki came along and we started Cycles Plus in 2003. Back then we had the racetrack open. We had a couple different racetracks open at the time, and that was really nice. And so we had, there was that news of the buildup. So our Kawasaki mules and, just so many different products that you can get from a power sports company. That's where Cycles Plus came into play.
I see.
And then not too long after, about 6 years later, Thrifty Car Rental, we purchased Thrifty Car Rental. And that, if you notice most dealerships, actually every dealership on Guam has a rental car business.
Yeah,
because it just makes sense. It really just makes sense. Not just economically, but also, you're able to set up a program to help your customers. Mm-hmm. So if your customer has to have their car, in the shop for a while or in the body shop, you're able to support them through a loaner or a rental car much smoother. And so it really makes a lot of sense, and it ties in nicely with the dealership. And so I think all dealerships on Guam have a rental car company.
And is that a function of, and this is kind of what I'm getting at, right? Is that a function of the need to create these structures to support your business because there's not these existing structures there, right? Yes. And that's kind of, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I just wanted to kind of hone in on that as far as like the tangent I'm trying to expand on is that a lot of times when you're a business like a automotive dealership, you need all these services.
You do.
And it's just, well, it doesn't exist in the way that I want it. I know exactly how I want it. Yes. So then you end up standing it up yourself, or it makes you more competitive because you're internalizing those margins.
Yes. Yeah.
So that I respect and I appreciate. And I think, but I also think there's opportunities there for entrepreneurs out there to look at existing businesses and say, hey, why don't we do this?
Absolutely. I think you and I mean, for months, I know you and I also, one of our favorite books is Main Street Millionaire. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that our generation and even the younger ones really, I recommend that book, but I believe wholeheartedly she's preaching to the choir. Cody Sanchez is preaching to the choir with looking at opportunities, and there's already existing businesses. There's existing infrastructure in areas, and maybe somebody's in retirement mode or ready to move back to the mainland if they're not from here, and those opportunities are out there. You've just got to find them.
Right, and so with that, we're at a time and place where access to information is really democratic. If you think about it, most people can afford a ChatGPT subscription,
right,
or some kind of LLM. And before, the part of the problem is you have to find the subject matter expert to kind of figure something out, right? But now you effectively have a subject matter expert who will yes you to death, but but as far as ideation, it works. But to be able to use these tools to put together structure and then go out and like deal seek and deal find.
Yes.
That's interesting to me, from the perspective of future growth, because one of the things that we talk about here is how the younger generation is leaving for perceived lack of opportunity.
Right.
And, or they're leaving for school and not coming back, again, for perceived lack of opportunity. But my argument is there's a ton of opportunity.
There is.
And one of the reasons I came back here, because I saw that there was a ton of opportunity. And it took me a while to execute some of that.
Better late than never.
Right. But at the same time, sometimes that's just the thing. It's just, it takes a little bit of time. It takes a little bit of luck. It takes a lot of resilience. But I don't want to be so negative here. And that's why
yes,
I like to have people on who have a positive outlook generally. And so one of the messages I'd like to get across is that there is so much opportunity here. I really hate when people say, this is Guam, we just accept it. And this is something another guest said. It's like, well, just because it didn't work 30 years ago doesn't mean it's not going to work now.
Right.
Because there's so much opportunity and technology and resources available that you can just pick it up. So tell me about that.
Yeah.
Tell me about your thoughts on that and opportunity and execution.
Yeah. I think it always kills me when I see our people leaving island and it's for that perceived better opportunity or more opportunities. Because I tell you, I get people ask, how can you live on Guam? Aren't you bored? What is there to do? I'm like, man, come and spend a day with me and you will see that there is too much to do. Sure. That sometimes we have to hone it in and we have to really choose focus and really prioritize on what we want to do. Because if you don't, there's so many things we can do. And I think if you're an entrepreneur and you have a positive mindset on the economy and how to get things done here, I will tell you, sky's the limit. And I think for younger people, I really hope that they can see that and that they can see that there's a lot of opportunity here. They just need to maybe find even a good mentor who can help guide them or introduce them. That's where great networking comes into play.
Yes.
And building relationships. But there is so much to do here that really, I will tell you, a lot of times my dad and I laugh because we have so many ideas and things we want to do that we'll have to just stop in our tracks. And sometimes I've got to say, well, hold on. Wait, let me finish this other project first. Let's get this other thing off the ground. And then I promise we're going to get back to that one. But, let's not lose it. Don't lose the idea. Let's finish this one thing first. Let's get this going. And then let's move on to the next. And I think that's how we've been able to go from, Cars Plus to Cycles Plus, Thrifty, Go Solar. We now have a car wash, we're in the car wash business now.
That's awesome.
Which is one of my favorite businesses. And, we've got Soft Wash, mm-hmm. which was another one. And how these all come about was really just trying to solve a problem that we had.
Right.
And so, I'm happy to share that at one point, our power bill at Cars Plus used to be over $16,000. Mm-hmm. We were like, this can't continue. And rates were only going to go up. So we looked into solar. I mean, we got quotes from other companies. We didn't have Go Solar yet. Mm-hmm. And we got quotes and we really looked at it like, this isn't making sense. And we started our own solar business and it came about through the need for it, right? We saw a need. We saw that we could potentially do it better. and we went for it. And, 6 years later, Go Solar is doing well, and we're building our team and learning it's learning a whole new industry.
Yes.
But, that's also part of the fun. And so I love learning about, power and wattage and working with other companies. Very similar to how we work with GATA. We're always happy to pick up the phone and work with IP&E and the Hagens, on initiatives. And I tell you, it's so fun because it's something different and it's something else that we get to learn, and I love it. And so that was from the solar side of things. So we put on over 400 solar panels on our dealership, and we went from a $16,000 power bill to now it's about $5,000.
It's amazing.
And that's with higher rates than it was 10 years ago.
Yeah, the price of oil is way up.
Yeah. And, if other businesses, see that, a lot of times that's what got a lot of other businesses to do it. They see real life examples, very tangible results. And that was one of our reasons for going into solar. And then that went into soft wash. I mean, flying in on an airplane, we're right along the flight path. So flying in, you look down, it's during the day when you're on a day flight. And, one day we were flying in and it was like, oh my gosh, our rooftop is black. This is so embarrassing.
Yeah, because you're right there.
We can go out and we can water blast a fun message on our roof. I was so embarrassed. And, it was like, well, what could we do? And so then you start looking into water blasting. You start looking into how can we get our roof to be white again? And a year or two later, there's soft wash, and then soft wash is born on Guam. And, it really, so much of it is really stemmed from like, wow, this is a need. Here's the need. Here's a solution. And here's how we can do it. And guess what? If we need that, how many other people need that? How many other companies, corporations, developers, those that are, managing huge buildings and residences, how many others need this without using the high pressure and peeling off your paint and seeing your paint fly off? It makes a lot of sense.
I think maybe we should try and sell rooftop advertising on your roof.
Stop. That's not a bad idea.
It's not a bad idea.
We're onto something.
But,
I like it.
But one of the things that you said there is the power of networking.
Yeah.
And the idea of that is people are so insular now, and there's not as much community. And what we try and do is build community through these networking opportunities.
Yes.
But not just locally, but regionally, and then with the mainland, of course, right? You go to these dealer conventions, you're always in like the Philippines, Japan. If you're not competing for a track or going to a swimming competition, you're somewhere, right?
Yes.
But one of the ways these opportunities come out is just through interaction with other people in business, going to chamber, going to Rotary clubs, joining whatever professional networks, and just having those conversations, because in those conversations or relationships, opportunities present themselves.
Yes.
But it makes sense that you test your business ventures on yourself as a customer.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes. We're always the guinea pig.
Yeah, but
you gotta be.
But yeah, exactly. But then that's the idea too. Once you have, as an entrepreneur, once you have the foothold and basic structure of a business, and you learn to operate with margin, and you can set up some things like loss leaders, like accounting and payroll. You have a nice accountant there and an attorney, right? Then it becomes infinitely more possible to branch out into these other ventures, right? Because you have capacity, you have credit. What do you think's missing, or do you think what do you think could help entrepreneurs who don't have that existing structure to kind of to base off of, and how would you suggest they enter the market and try and execute?
Okay, that's a big question, but if they were just starting from scratch and didn't know what to do, where to go, I think it's in those networking with the organizations. And networking is kind of used lightly, but I mean truly building relationships, being able to pick up the phone and call someone that you could ask questions. I promise you, there are so many. I like in Leonard Calvo's interview that you had, you brought up boomers. There are so many boomers that would love to share their knowledge, and even Gen Xers that want to share their knowledge. on how they did it or how to do it and introduce you to those that can help you get it done. I think it's huge, and that's a great place to start. Visiting the SBA is a great place to start. I'll tell you, SBA and SBDC, they were there for my father when he started back in the 90s. And, Frank Chrysostomo, may he rest in peace. He was wonderful. He helped my dad build his business plan.
I didn't realize.
And so he's always has a special place in our hearts because back in the 90s, he really helped my dad. And I think that would be a huge piece of advice I give is reach out to these organizations. They're there for you and they love to help. They'll be there for you. So if you're not sure how to write a business plan, if you're not sure where to go or how to get financing, SBA, Bank of Guam has a great small business program. I think the resources are out there. You just got to know where to look.
And that's, again, network.
Yes.
You have to be out there and put yourself out there and be humble enough to admit.
Yes.
And I think that's a good way to build trust too, is when you just reach out to someone and just say,
absolutely,
they're vulnerable and say, hey, I really want to get to know you. Really love to get my foot in the door. And it's rare that someone will say no to that, especially if it's earnest.
Yes.
Because it takes a lot of guts.
Right. And, I think those are a lot of the behind the scenes times that most people don't see. People will see the podcast or they'll see, their Instagram and they think it's just instant success, right? They don't see all the phone calls, the lunches, the coffees where, these entrepreneurs are reaching out to others and they're asking for help. They're asking for guidance. I've got a number of people on my speed dial list that I can call and they'll pick up and we'll grab coffee. We'll go to lunch, or we'll just talk over the phone. And I get to just ask questions and let them talk me through it.
Yeah, most people like speaking about themselves too.
Yeah, or just how they did something, yes. Right? Like, how did they do this? How can you get this going?
Yeah,
it's
flattery. It's nice.
It's great.
Somebody asks.
Yeah, and I agree.
I'm happy to tell the story because I understand the value of mentorship, and one of the ways I learn about things is I read about people like business leaders from the past.
Yes,
Sam Walton.
Absolutely, love them.
So what inspires you? Like, what are the things that you read and kind of form your worldview and your kind of like mindset and outlook? Because you're really competitive. I know that you're avid. Like you're on something with wheels, one way or the other.
Yeah, I think our family is just a naturally competitive family. We love racing. We love anything competitive, and that in and of itself helps. I love reading books. I love podcasts. There's a lot of things I read, a lot of books I read. But yeah, I'd say, you got to look locally, but you also got to also keep up with the times. And so whether it's opening Instagram and making sure you're following quality content, making sure you're not just watching random time wasters. I see that a lot. Of course, it's fun to have some funny moments and some fun memes, but, I think there are so many resources. Like if you use YouTube and Instagram and Threads, and all these blogs, if you use them, productively, it can do so many things for you. I travel a lot for work and for family, and I typically will, if there's something on YouTube that I find, I use the airplane as I call it my classroom. Mm-hmm. So I'm pre-downloading things. I'm pre-downloading YouTube videos on whether it's finance, whether it's markets, stock. I'm just downloading all these things that I could be on the plane learning from. And, that's a great place that I like to use because it's also quiet. It's forced time. It's forced rest. And
comfy seat.
Yeah, it's comfy seat. That is just one of my favorite times. That's kind of my me time.
That's cool. You are on airplanes a lot. So.
Yeah.
That explains.
So you've got to maximize your time. You got to maximize your time. And so I do. I mix it with rest, but learning.
So what do you think about the economy? Like, what do you think about the way things are shaping out and kind of the way forward?
Yeah. Well, I know that a lot of people are kind of fearful of the way things are kind of shaping up to be, especially with, I think this is DFS's last week in operation, and that's pretty scary. We grew up with DFS. We grew up with a lot of these businesses that are shutting down, and it is terrifying. But, how we look at it, one of the things that auto dealers look at, and including bankers, one thing that we look at to kind of gauge our industry is we look at the repossession rates of cars. And so, Guam is still a recourse market. Guam is, I think, one of the few, if not the only recourse market in
What does that
the
mean,
US.
recourse?
And so recourse means that, and it's not all banks. I believe it's only 2 banks now left that do recourse, 2 or 3. And what that means is for customers that don't have A credit, meaning they don't have excellent credit, 720 and up for their credit score. Typically, a recourse deal means the dealer has to approve it. Basically, it goes to a dealer to approve, but the dealer's on the hook for it.
So it's like
the dealer is a silent cosigner.
I see.
That's what it is. We're a silent cosigner. And most times, actually all times, customers don't know that. And so it's their name on the contract. But if they miss payments and they get their vehicle repossessed, the dealer is 100% responsible for it. And that's what really hurts dealers. That's what's taken dealers out in the past. And so some of the dealerships that aren't around, most of the time it's because of those repo rates.
I see.
Because if you were to get, it would hurt any dealer to get dozens of vehicles back in 1 month, and they're all recourse.
Right.
Because that's just cash. We have to stroke a check to the bank. So the dealers assume all the risk.
Wow.
And we are one of the few markets, I believe, in the country. Hawaii used to be a recourse market. They are no longer recourse, but Guam still is.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what we monitor closely. So
you mean the foreclosures, the repossession?
Yep, repos. We call them, the repossessions. We monitor those closely. We work with the banks a lot too. So, sometimes we'll be able to help them make some calls and see how we can help the customer before it gets repossessed, because we also want to help the customer and not have to incur all those fees.
Why not internalize that?
Right. And so, the risk is already there, but they're riskier deals to do. But if they make sense for us, like let's say they have steady employment, steady income, low debt, no charge-offs, no previous repo on their history, but maybe they just have limited credit. That's pretty common on Guam's, limited credit. And so maybe they only have 2 lines open, a credit card and, a small personal loan. Then their credit score is not going to be as high because it's just limited credit. Instances like those, I always say no credit or limited credit is better than bad credit. And so we look at all those things. And it's the dealer that gets to make the call if that customer is going to get bought.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Huh. So with why is Guam still a recourse market?
It's a great question. I think there's still, I think that banks are still quite traumatized from the late 90s. And I think it's just a way to leverage their risk.
But if I dealt with PenFed, which I have, I just send my credit report, they send me a $40,000 check.
Yeah.
Right? That's how it would work, right?
Correct.
And that's a non-recourse.
That's non-recourse.
So why then someone like...
Credit unions don't do recourse.
Yes, so why aren't credit unions... The nature of recourse, though, I would presume, is to deal with the market segment where it's a little riskier, right? So you can move the inventory.
Correct.
So it's a trade-off for you to take the risk.
It is.
To move the car.
It is. Yeah, it's bittersweet. Yeah. So, while it's if the deal goes bad, we have to eat that. But at the end of the day, more customers keep their cars than not.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we hope it stays. But I tell you, that's how we see where the economy comes into play. So the more jobs that are lost out there, those might be customers that have recourse loans.
Mm-hmm.
And if those get repossessed because they just don't have a job, that's where we begin to feel the pinch.
So you're looking at repossessions in general as a general preparation. Oh, shoot, there's been like 10 this month. Not for me, but just industry-wide.
Right.
And I need to start hoarding some cash because I should expect a similar percentage.
Yes.
I guess.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure most dealers, dealers are, have a reserve in the event something happens.
Interesting. So with that, with the recourse now, how segmented is that market? Like in terms of, I'm curious, how much of her sales are driven by recourse loans and how much of her sales, because there's
Yeah.
alternative credit, right?
Yes.
So this must be a significant portion of the business.
You'd be surprised. It's actually gone down quite a bit.
Okay.
A couple of the main banks don't do recourse, which is great. But at the end of the day, sometimes we want to take more risk.
Yeah, you got to.
We're actually quite risky. I'm sure you can imagine dealers are quite risky people.
Make a sell car.
Love risk. Even ride our bikes down cliffs. But we love risk, and but as long as it's calculated and it makes sense to us, and those are the things that are in our control, and that's the beautiful thing about recourse is if we're willing to take the risk, there's a reason. So typically, all recourse deals that come to the table or come to the dealership, they have to go through us, of course, and that's where we get to look at everything and see if it makes sense. If it doesn't, it's okay. The customer understands. But if we do it, then we do it knowing, okay, this is why. And if it does get repossessed, a year, 2 years later, we go back to that file and it's got my notes on why I did it. And, I take responsibility for that. But at the time, those are what the conditions
Yeah, you took the risk.
I took the risk.
No risk.
Risk it for the biscuit.
There you go. All right. So you're monitoring recourse. So,
yeah.
So how do you get data on the auto industry? Because it's really hard to get.
Yes. I'm so glad you asked that. So, gosh, up until 2020, like right up until the pandemic, we used to have, there was a company, DMV used to outsource their market research. And so it used to be all through the registrations. So all of it was coming from DMV.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was Market. I think it was J. It might have been J.
MRD.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think it was.
Okay.
And they were hired to do all the market data for vehicles, all from DMV. So it only came through registrations. Right when the pandemic hit, that came to a complete halt.
I see.
So for almost a year, almost all of 2020, we didn't have any reports, very little reporting. And then, through GATA, Guam Auto Dealers Association, that was where we were like, guys, we need this data. Every manufacturer asks for it all the time. Every month, manufacturers ask for performance.
Okay.
And so we saw that we were going to have to do it no matter what. So it's wonderful. Nissan took the lead. So Nissan gathers, we submit our data. Every dealer submits their numbers to Nissan.
Okay.
We have a template that we put together, super manual. It's all through Excel. But we all, it's on our system, and we put input our sales every month. And so Nissan compiles it and sends it back to us.
It's almost like bragging rights, though. It's like a sales.
It is, absolutely.
It's like,
Can you imagine, especially a bunch of 6 new car competitive dealers? It's hilarious.
Just like slap it on.
Yeah,
the
it can either make your day or ruin your day, but it's fun. No, it's.
Does the winner? Does the loser buy the drinks at the annual?
Good idea.
Yeah, I think so. We must start incorporating that.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
No, but that's how we do it. So really, our market is really through Nissan kind of taking the lead. We all submit our data to Nissan, and they compile it for us and get it out.
Because one of the things that I would say dealerships in the mainland benefit from is market intelligence. They have way more market intelligence than you do locally, but that's because of our data structure. So how do you overcome those gaps, and what do you do to kind of pull the analytics in that you need to sell cars?
Oh gosh, we run a lot off of those data reports. Mm-hmm. So what we've started to do probably just a year or two ago, we started incorporating models. We used to just do brands. It was very general, very generic. Mm-hmm. Now we're incorporating the models and the segments. So it takes a little bit more time to produce the reports, but it's worth it because we need this data every month. Mm-hmm. Every month you get, I'm sure everyone's manufacturers are emailing them, reminding them to submit their the market share report.
What data is important to the auto? Because I think the insurance adjusters need accident data, and how are they getting that? How is all the data that the auto industry needs? Where is it being sourced and aggregated from?
Yeah, so it's through that report, and then DMV does have a report, but it's not as useful or intuitive as the GATA report.
Why?
Yeah, because It's probably more visual than anything, but they basically get to just print. They just print off the number of registrations. It's a listing, yeah, and each page is a different dealer
versus
versus our It's sorted. It's visually easy for the manufacturers to read. It's visually easier for us to read. With the Reventax or the DMV forms, we are manually like, okay, this many, this many Santa Cruzes were sold, this many Santa Fe's. It's seriously like a black and white list.
Yeah,
photocopy.
I've seen the list.
Yeah,
and not to blame.
No, and it is what it is, and that's okay because we're getting by with these GATA reports.
Well, what would you like to see?
So I would love to see more segment data. We used to get. I wish I had one with me, but it used to be so detailed pre 2020.
Oh, so you were already getting the data that you needed from them in a segmented way.
It was almost too much data. We were getting so much data, but the reports were organized.
Why does it go away?
We're not sure.
Maybe the person's retired.
Maybe.
Sometimes that's what it is.
Yeah, and so right when the pandemic hit, it was like, unfortunately, these reports will no longer be produced, and so we were busy just trying to manage and stay afloat during the first few months. So no one was pushing on these reports, but it just became clear that they weren't going to bring them back. And so those used to have segment data, which was super helpful, meaning compact, subcompact, full-size pickup trucks, mid-size pickup trucks. We used to see in one fell swoop which segment was the strongest.
Yeah, because it tells you where the market is.
Yeah, which segment should we be ordering from? Which segment should we not be ordering from or reduce orders? And so, yeah, those reports were really good. But that's the kind of data we like.
But the industry is completely changing too because cars are changing. Yep. The manufacturing process is changing. We're going super inexpensive. Yep. We have all these like wonky like imports coming in, right side drives, right?
Yeah.
And then the way people value cars is different. Like, what do you think's coming on that horizon?
Gosh, it's so hard to say, especially right now with gas prices the way they are. And with us having a difficult time bringing in EVs, but we see and what we're hearing, I was just at a Hyundai conference, and what we're hearing so much from everyone really is AI and moving to more technology in the vehicles and to more and more vehicles either becoming self-driving or just having loads more features in it. So I think, we're just, as dealers, we're going to have to get better, faster, stronger at teaching our people these features before they get too intimidated by these cars. Yeah. But I will tell you, it's the simple ones that we see moving the fastest. Well, the simpler the car, the better.
Yeah, I think there is, because the one shift would be there's all these advanced features coming out these cars. We don't have the infrastructure to support self-driving. We don't even have GIS,
right? Or Sirius satellite.
we don't have the data structure to kind of support. It's on its way, GTA. but the rest of it is missing. And then the notion that we don't have the technical capacity to support these features,
right?
And that's one of the things to speak to the trades, right? We're moving to all this mechanical automation and all this robotic process, but the infrastructure for repair here is it's there's nobody,
right,
and nothing. Other than what you've internalized, what do you think needs to happen here to kind of support your industry and the technicians that you're going to need?
Yeah,
and what skills should people be loading up on to kind of support that?
Good. What we had to do, one, it's going to take big investments from each business, each dealership, maybe even the trades. What they've got to do is, because with EVs, for example, we've had to completely take out our standard lifts and we've had to install and invest in 2 EV lifts. Because what that means is our current lifts, they lift the car right from the center of the vehicle, right? Well, you can't do that when you need to drop the battery. So they need to access the battery completely. So they're completely different lifts. So a few years ago, we invested in EV lifts. And so they actually remind you, though, of the old school ones where they're that rectangular shape. So they got away from those ones because when you open the doors could tend to hit. So anyway, we're back to those ones. We're back to the traditional looking lifts, but it's so that the batteries can be worked on or just removed
Cool.
and dropped
So you can access.
the vehicle. Yeah. And so it's funny that you bring that up, because just next month in April, we're sending 2 of our senior technicians to Australia for EV training. And so they will go get trained, and then they will come back and in turn train the staff, train the tech team here. But that's what it takes. It takes, investing in your people, and us sending our technicians. They've gone several times already to train in person on electric vehicle technology and how to service and repair and change these batteries out. And, it's an investment, but it's the way everything's going. You can't not do it.
It feels like they're layering the mechanical parts so deep in the car, so it's like no one can get in there. I can't even change the battery myself in the car because I can't pull the plate
right
to get to it. Right.
I bet. Yeah.
So is that on purpose, Jen? You're doing
Probably.
that on purpose?
No.
It's because of maintenance, right?
Yeah.
Because the dealer model too is different. You're not, a lot of people think that you're making money off of the car sale itself, but there's very little margin.
Right.
Really, it's like your model is relying on,
returning customers, service, maintenance. Yeah. Taking care of your vehicle. Yeah. And that's where it's at. And, that's a lot of, there's a lot of business models out there like that, right? I mean, including healthcare.
Yeah. So one of the things that we've spoken about a lot too is financial literacy, and just basic skills. You talk about employees coming in to the marketplace. What are you seeing that is lacking in the people that you're bringing into your business to support it now? And how do you think we're doing a good enough job to help businesses kind of move forward in the new environment?
Sure. Really good question. And it's actually one of my passion projects, is talking about financial literacy, financial education. And it's something I'm currently trying to bring even to schools, and starting off with just one school first, and introducing a formal but structured program, perhaps starting in middle school or at least 8th grade through senior till they graduate, but a financial literacy program. I think that is where our school system is failing all of our kids. And I'm talking, all schools across the country. And I don't know if you recently saw, but I just read that California is going to be implementing it starting in school year 27.
No, I didn't.
I was so mind blown. I just saw it like 2 days ago. I'll send it to you.
Oh, cool.
And they're going to be implementing a high school program that is going to be required. And it's all about financial literacy. And I think it's so critical because, I look at so much about business, and so much of our businesses, especially, it's always about numbers. We deal with so much numbers. And, when you get out of high school, how ready are you? How ready are these students for the real world? Some of them go right into college. Some of them don't. Some go right into the workforce. But how ready are they? How prepared are they? And what I would love to see, a dream of mine would be to see these graduates get out of college and they are so financially confident. They'll know about high yield savings, compound interest, the pros and cons of debt, how to avoid bad debt. What is the stock market? What are the different indexes of the stock market? What's an ETF? I think these are principles that just aren't taught in schools. And, can you imagine how much better the workforce would be if they were better prepared financially with that financial knowledge? They say, even in marriages, right? They say the number one cause of fights in relationships, it's about money. And a lot of times, whether it's spouses who aren't on the same page, or they're not sharing the knowledge with their children, and then their children grow up with bad habits. And without the knowledge, there's so much room for improvement when it comes to financial literacy. So it's a passion project of mine. I pride myself on my middle schooler, knowing about these things, but because I think it's important. I think they're just going to be more well-rounded human beings. And when you have happier, healthier, financially healthy, individuals, you're going to have a better community.
I agree. And then also better successes in a lot of ways in terms of moving on to the next phase of life.
Absolutely.
Buying the house, starting the business.
That's right.
Putting the kids in college.
Yeah.
Handing them those opportunities.
Yeah. Understanding credit reports and what goes into a credit report, how to read a credit report.
And then even understanding basic market dynamics through the exercise.
Yes.
So you learn so much about international trade. I mean, this being in the podcast, but just the deeper levels of international trade, currency, arbitrage, markets, and how the world kind of interplays with everything. And even, when you get down to international marketing, how culturally things are received, you need that perspective to move forward. And I think, yes, that's definitely missing from the educational system.
Yeah.
But what do you think? I had a good question.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, it was relative to the military buildup, right? I want to go back to you. So, Len said one of our biggest reels was Len, because he said there's two economies, right? The military economy and the rest of us. So we talk a lot about the two economies Guam has. The military side, where we're doing stuff for the buildup and construction, and then the rest of us here. And so, what do you think of what's happening locally with respect to housing and the downstream effects of the buildup? Are you pro? Are you against? Are you in the middle? Where do you stand there?
Sure. Well, I'm certainly, I guess you could say as a business owner and entrepreneur, I'm certainly pro buildup, but also from a native and indigenous woman from the island, that certainly puts me right in the middle. And I get to see both sides of the effects. And, economically, of course, it's going to do great for us. And it certainly has very real effects on us, not just through, the basics of, selling more vehicles, but just through more activity. The more construction activity there is, indirectly, we're going to have construction companies buying trucks. We're going to have the local vendors purchasing and servicing. And so it certainly has a positive effect on really any business. But, on the flip side, I also see the average price of homes here, and I see what our people have to go through. And I have employees who, come to me for advice on what to do. And those are where also those are these kind of those unspoken effects that really aren't really spoken of. We always talk about the economic side, but really the real effects is when I see my employees, having a difficult time, whether it's buying a car or a difficult time owning a home or even paying rent.
Yeah, and that's part of it too. The economic hardship and the lack of opportunity makes it hard to sustain and perpetuate and advance a business, especially if you're losing key personnel.
Yes.
To health issues, to familial issues that are caused by lack of access to safe housing, by lack of access to good education. All these things come into play. So what do you think needs? So you're pro buildup, but then downstream there are these social consequences. What do you think we need to do a better job of in terms of adjusting for those social consequences?
Yeah. Well, I think this is where I learn a lot from my husband too. Jen Camacho, attorney, and he's very vocal about the effects, especially the environmental side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you live it too.
Correct. Yeah. The environmental and the socioeconomic side, there are very real effects that he's been able to really open my eyes to, because, as a business owner, we kind of have the blinders on. We have the horse blinders on. But, he's really been able to help me see what goes on the other side of things. And yep, we're one of those residents in Jigo. We're one of the 1,100 who is currently dealing with, unsafe water issues, and have been for quite some time. And so, we went, installed all these filters into each of our sinks, most of our sinks. And, who'd have thought it's 2026. We're on Guam, and you wouldn't think that you'd have to do that, but we do.
But the dichotomy of that is interesting to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because generally, you own real estate, not you personally. Well, yeah, you own real estate, but if you own real estate and you have investment in real estate,
Yes.
you're benefiting from the downstream effect of the buildup.
Right.
But if you're a business owner, at the same time, you see the struggle that's a result of that.
Yep.
How do you contrast that and sit with that?
Yeah. It's, I say that's where a lot of that is where a lot of the stress comes into play, because it's there's so much give and take, push and pull, but really what we have to do, and this is one thing I loved about Leonard's talk too, is he touched on, what we can control, and we can't control what goes on behind the fence. We can't control, we can't control the international markets and the yen and the exchange market, things that we don't control or that we can't control. We have to make sure that we work on what we can control. And that's going to be, working hard to take care of our people. When they need support or they need help, we're always there for them. And really just making sure that we get involved in the processes. You'll see us, people are always surprised to see us, but we show up to public hearings, we show up to the town halls. Mm-hmm. And I think getting involved and being a part of the process is incredibly important. And not enough of our people do that.
Yeah, and I'm really happy with leadership at the chamber, the way, kind of rallying
Yes.
troops to kind of get messaging on target for the upcoming election year. Yeah. And I think leaders should be listening, potential leaders should be listening to these conversations, and that's one of the reasons I want to bring business leaders in, is because I want you to express what needs to happen moving forward, because I think what's happening is there's not as much discussion of ideas that has happened before. It's more insular, face-to-face.
Yes.
But now I see the growing chorus of the community saying, man, this is really bad. We got to work together to figure it out. But I really appreciate that, because I think it's a rallying cry, and I think people are stepping up to the call. So what do you think about that?
I do. I think, there's so many different areas of what I do. It's always intertwined with politics and government, always. And so people always tell me, every time I try to encourage people to vote, I'm always told, well, why? What's the point? And when I explain to them the effect it has on our daily lives, especially being from Guam, being on Guam, every decision made at the legislature, every bill that is introduced, every law that is passed affects our daily lives, because we're such a small community. So if they don't at least get involved, and one, vote, but two, get involved with what's happening out there, show up to these public hearings if there's something that interests you or affects you. Submit written or public testimony. I know a lot of people don't like to get on a mic and speak, but that's the beautiful thing about being able to submit written testimony. Right. Get it in there. Just be a part of the process. You'd be surprised how much it helps. And, to the leaders that are currently in office, some of them, I have to work with them quite often. And I will tell you, it's so refreshing and encouraging when you have senators who are open to talking, and they want your opinions, they want your advice, they want guidance. They just want more people involved. They want to get various opinions involved. Because I've also seen the flip side. I've seen senators shut their door on us, not want to have any discussions with us. And so, that's the power of voting, though. Mm-hmm. Right? And that's why I'll always, believe in the power of voting and getting involved, because every decision they make down in Agana affects us so much.
I agree. And there's not necessarily the amount of thought that needs to happen.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times it becomes reactionary, or it's like a good idea, well-intended, but maybe you didn't do the research and speak to the people
right
to speak to, which is why you have to go knock on their door.
Yeah. Sometimes you do. Quite often you do. And that's why I'm really, I'm really proud of what the Chamber's been doing.
Yes.
And it's great to be a part of an organization that really stands up for businesses and small businesses, entrepreneurs, and they really highlight, the things that do need to be looked at, do need to be revisited. Because I'll tell you, boy, if our current senators just looked at current laws in place, didn't have to even get creative and think about new ones. If they just looked at our current laws that are completely outdated or haven't been changed in decades, that's a great place to start. Because, what worked 30 years ago may not work today. What once was sometimes and usually is not, the way it is. And so if they just took that time and looked at updating laws that, are quite old and antiquated, Guam would probably be in a better place just based on
I think so. Well, the Dan Waverly, less laws.
Yeah. Less laws or just more updated ones, right?
Enforce the existing ones.
Yeah.
All right. That's really good. That's good insight. I'm going to do something a little bit different with you.
Okay.
As suggested by some of our listeners, right? So, okay. Growth, impact, legacy.
Okay.
Pick one.
Growth.
Why? Why are you chasing growth?
I think because, one, where we're at in life, I think there's still so much opportunity out there, because I believe if I can focus on sustainable growth and in a healthy growth, that can help contribute to legacy, leaving a solid legacy behind for our children and grandchildren.
Fair enough. Is it growth for growth's sake, or is there something inside that just, I got to do this?
Yeah, sometimes there's a little piece of me that also wants to, just...
What are you trying to prove?
This is great. You know that I'm crazy, Ryan, and I'm always trying to prove something to myself. But it'd be nice to kind of continue to try different things, continue to take risk. I think I'm at a good place to do that now. Ask me 10 years from now, and I'm not going to choose growth. That's for sure. But just based on where we're at now, I'd say growth.
No, I don't know about that 10 years from now thing. Okay. What is something about success that only experience teaches?
Oh, mistakes. You're going to make mistakes. Just try not to repeat the same ones.
Own it.
Yeah.
Live it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. How do you balance ambition with being present?
With being present? Ooh, that's a good one.
That's a hard one for me.
That's a really tough one.
I'm not even going to tell you what I think.
Okay, well, I'll just give you some real examples of how I do that. I make it a point that once I'm home, I really do. I try so hard not to do any work when I'm home. My boys know dinner table is a device-free zone. We are at home, and it's not always 100%, with having to work at home. Same with my husband. We're both very busy and driven people, but we do what we can to make sure that we're present at home or with the kids. They're into a ton of sports, so we do our best. It's not always 100%, but we do our best to be the ones to be there with them, taking them, and doesn't always work out, but yeah, just being present with them.
Okay, so you're one of the 25 most influential women, right?
Yeah.
What is it that you think is getting taken away from you? The one thing.
As a woman?
Not taken away, like stolen from you, but that's what inspires me.
Oh gosh, that's a really tough question. But you know what I always say? Here on Guam, it's really such an honor to be featured on that. But I also believe that on Guam, we are quite different from the mainland. And the honor is really, really nice. But on Guam, we're quite lucky. We are a matriarch society. I think women on Guam, you can see it. We have a woman governor, a female governor. And I look at so many of the CEOs on Guam, and they're female. And I think that we're in a really good space. I think Guam is a great place to be a female.
I agree. Well, I couldn't agree, I guess. Anyways, yeah. But so, okay. So with that, It's a better way to say this. I'm trying to frame it. So you said your takeaway is because one of the things I was circling back to what I appreciate.
Yep.
So one of the things that inspires me about you is you're just such a grinder, man. Like you're just like I've never seen you. I've never heard you say no, right, to an opportunity. Right, you just kind of turn in and just kind of charge ahead, right, and you're really humble about it, and it's really just the way you just kind of like, just start chipping away, right, and it's just very consistent and very. I think it's inspiring because I just see you climbing the mountain all the time. It's like you're riding your bike up a hill, right, and just
riding my bike up a hill.
And I look away and then I look back and you're just a little further up the hill and then until I can't see you anymore. And that's kind of been the nature of my relationship with you, right? Because we started out, you were at the bottom of the hill, right?
Yeah.
And then slowly, and then now I look up and you're like, oh shit, where's Jen? And part of it because I was running the other way, but I appreciate that. Thanks for.
I got your back.
Yeah, Jen, thanks so much for coming on today. And just one of the. I just wanted to say one of the things, I asked you about the one thing that, people take away from you in terms of inspiration and leadership. But one of the things I take away from you is I just see you generally so unintimidated by most things. And, you're just so fearless in the way you turn towards something and say, okay, I'm going to go. And sometimes one of the analogies I use for leadership is, sometimes as a leader, you're just charging up the hill and you're like, come on, come with me. And then you look back and it's like, oh crap, where's everybody else? Because you're charging ahead, right?
Yeah.
But I see you as that. You're a charge ahead first person. You're generally not blindly, but in terms of like, again, you're not intimidated by things and you're very meticulous in the way you approach and just like take things step by step, and I really appreciate that. So I just wanted to say that I appreciate you two coming on, and it's been great having the discussion with you.
Thank you. It's been an honor being here.
Thanks, Jen. That was great. That was a long one with Jen. Part of it's because I know her, and really I didn't even get to a lot of the stuff that I really wanted to talk to her about. And that's just because we were so tangential in a lot of different ways, because there's so many things I wanted to speak with her about. But I really appreciate her perspective in terms of verticals, in terms of some of the structures that exist to help facilitate success locally. Her enthusiasm about the local market and understanding that no, it's not all devoid of opportunity there. It's just about execution and taking advantage and a little bit of luck. And so with that, I think she told a great story, and I'm glad you all joined us to listen. Please join us on Instagram, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify and YouTube for the long form video of the show. Thanks for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next time here on Data Points. Nice.